I want to start off by telling you a bit about who I am. I'm Métis, I'm French, I'm a veteran, I'm a lawyer, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a son, I'm an uncle, I'm a husband, and soon I'm going to be a father. And I want to tell you a bit about where I come from as well. So I was born in a small French Métis community in Manitoba called Saint-Anne, near this bridge you see in the picture here. Saint-Anne is one of the original 18 Métis settlements. There's not much there. There's a church and a hockey rink and a French school. And it's also home to a more famous Larocque, Jocelyn Larocque, my cousin, who is a three-time Olympian who played for Team Canada. Other famous members of my family and my ancestors are in this photo. So in 1869, led by Louis Riel, the Red River Métis led a resistance against the government of Canada to fight for Métis rights. And that led to the Manitoba Act. And so Louis Riel's my cousin. Charles Larocque is in this photo, my cousin as well, and my great-great-great-grandfather, Paul Proulx, in that photo. It's a great place, but I knew I had to leave and I wanted to get an education, and growing up in a small town is difficult. So I joined the Canadian Armed Forces when I was 16, and I served 8 years in the Royal Canadian Navy. I got to sail quite a bit and had a lot of great experiences. When my time was done in the Navy, I decided to pursue one of my other passions, which is music, as you've heard. So I left, I studied music in New York City for 2 years. But when I came back, I got pulled back into the military as a musician, and I played in the Royal Canadian Air Force band called Jetstream. And I toured around the world for about 4 years playing music for the military. But something was missing. I knew I had to keep moving on. I always wanted to be a lawyer. So I left the military again. I attended Peter A. Aller's School of Law for my JD in the Indigenous Legal Studies program. And I met some amazing people there and was very fortunate to be able to do that. I had the opportunity to work at a great law firm. I continued my studies and got my LLM. And recently I left to start my own law firm called Larocque Business Law. Now, you might be asking, what does this all have to do with community? And the answer is our communities help to shape our identities. And it's the stories we tell about who we are that allow us to go through our lives and make the choices we make. And so community is so important to identity that it's one of the fundamental aspects of the stories we tell. And so one quote that I really like is that humans are just the sort of organisms that interpret and modify their agency through their conception of themselves. So we go through our lives making decisions and acting on our conceptions of ourselves, who we think we are, and that's so tied to community, and we can't escape that power of community. See what I did there? So I look at community identity in three different layers. So individual identity, obviously your gender, where you're from, what you do; cultural identity, your ancestors and your background; your social identity, your friends and your family, your hobbies maybe. These all interact, and some of them overlap to make who you are. But where you're from doesn't dictate who you are. And the communities that you can choose can help play a better role in who you want to be. So you can't pick all of your communities, but you can pick which communities you want to put your efforts and your time into in order to give back. And the thing about communities is that they don't exist in a vacuum. They're reciprocal. They need people to show up. Friendships don't last without a reciprocal relationship. Alumni organizations don't exist without people like you showing up to events like this. And so you have to give back to your communities for them to exist. And so I want to tell you about how I give back to my communities. In my legal work, I give back to my community, and I honor my ancestors by representing Indigenous peoples, and I work on Indigenous economic development and advocate for Indigenous rights. And I can't think of anything better than that as a pursuit in my life. For the last 6 years, I've sat on the board of Inspire, which is a national charity that provides funding for Indigenous students. And I was a benefactor of Inspire when I was in law school. And I know many Indigenous students need help to pursue higher education. I can't be more proud of the work we do at Inspire. I have been in the forces for over 20 years now. When I went to law school, I tried transitioned to part-time. I continue to be in the armed forces. I work as a recruit instructor, a first aid instructor, and I mentor a lot of junior members who are in the same position that I was in. And I also work for an organization called the Defence Aboriginal Advocacy Group, which advocates for Indigenous peoples in the Canadian Armed Forces. As well, I continue to give back to the University of Manitoba, UBC, other law schools that will have me. I'll basically go talk to anybody about Indigenous economic development as a career in law to get more people involved and more good lawyers involved in that important work. Additionally, to give back to my prior career as a musician and an artist, I have worked for the Artist Legal Outreach Society and the Pacific Legal Education and Outreach Society, which provides pro bono legal advice to artists and arts organizations, as well as giving my time to almost any musician or artist that needs help and can't afford legal advice. So here are my calls to action for everyone. One is choose and embrace your communities. Consider how you can give back to those communities, either in a small or big way. Say yes as much as possible, but learn when you have to say no as well. And lastly, be who you say you are. Now, you can't do everything. You can do anything, but you have to make choices in this life. And the choices you make about your communities is going to help shape who you are and your identity and give you a lot of value in your life. And so you have to be careful not to overcommit, but you have to also learn how to say yes and give back. And lastly, the most important communities that you all belong to are your friends and your family, because without those communities and the support of those people, you can't do half of the things that you want to do in this world. So remember to foster those communities first, and they'll give you meaning in your life and allow you to do the other things that you want to do. Thanks very much.